Kevin Hatchard, our European football expert, is with us in the studio. He was actually at the beginning of the 5 hour. That's when the draw for the Champions League was made. I'm not going to go through it again. I'll go through it over the next hour. I want to talk to you about, Kev. It's interesting when the draw's made, because it's happening. You don't really have time to mull it over and look at sort of the teams and the fans that will be happy with the draw and the teams that won't be. I don't think Liverpool fans will be anything but disappointed with Ajax, Napoli and Rangers. I think there's a lot of pressure on Klopp this year. I think there's a lot of pressure on Liverpool as well. You know, had an awful start to Premier League football. No, they have. Right. No, they have, right? I'm sure there's lots of...
look, the results haven't been great. The performances, I think against Palace with 10 men, they actually play very well against a good side. And in the early part of that game, when it was 11 against 11, they were the better side, certainly in the first 20 minutes or so. Fulham, they were poor. He admitted that, Jurgen Klopp. And they just lacked intensity at Old Trafford against a side that played very well and much better than they have been. I don't think anybody will panic. I think a lot of it is injury-led. And Liverpool's record in this competition as Jurgen Klopp is very good. I think they will look at the group. Where it's awkward is you sometimes get this in the Champions League. There is no minnow to duff up. You look at it and you think, Rangers, that's awkward. They've done brilliantly in the Europa League, did really well against PSV last night. Ajax, I think, are not the team that won 6 group games last season.
No, you're right.
I mean, you look at the list of players they've lost. Ryan Gravenberch went to Bayern. Mazraoui went to Bayern. Lisandro Martinez has gone to United. Anthony could go to United. Sebastian Aller has gone to Dortmund. They lost Nicolas Tagliafico, Per Schurz. There's a lot of players left the club. Calvin Bassey's gone in there, so the Calvin Bassey derby that we're going to get later. The Bassey Classico. Stephen Bergwijn has gone there, of course. And then you've got Brian Bobby's gone back in there. I don't think they're anywhere near as strong as the squad as they were last season. So they, to me, look in danger.
Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do, right? Because we're going to ask people to phone up and tell us what they make of their team and the draw that they've got. But as we go through each group, I'm going to ask you both, before we move on, to tell me the 2 teams that you think will go through. So Group A is Ajax, Liverpool, Napoli and Rangers. Who do you think the 2 will qualify? Will be, Kev?
I think Liverpool and Napoli will go through, but Rangers will make it ever so close.
Okay, what do you make of Group A, Benny?
Yeah, I'm going to go Liverpool. I'm going to go Rangers, just to be different to Kev. I just think, as you were talking about, Rangers results in Europe, tough place to go. Up Ibrox, an evening game, tough place to go. So I think Rangers are going to get out of this group.
Okay.
Who do you think?
I think Ajax and Rangers will go through.
How did I know that was coming?
That's the question.
I'm only joking. I think Napoli have got a chance as well. Let's just talk about the teams, the British team, shall we, before we talk about the other ones. Let's move on to Group D. Frankfurt, Spurs, Sporting Lisbon and Marseille. Lots of Spurs fans looking on social media over the moon with this group, and every reason to be, right?
Yeah, there should be. I think Tottenham are the strongest team in that group. I think it looks more like a Europa League group than a Champions League group, and I don't mean to denigrate any of the teams in it, but if you look at it, Frankfurt were in the Europa League last season.
That was the team that everyone wanted, right? In pot A,
in pot
team
one,
that really shouldn't have been there, if you know what I mean.
Because the thing with Frankfurt is they've lost Filip Kostic, who's their star player. I think there's a bit of a hangover, actually, from last season. They've started really slowly in the Bundesliga this term. Kevin Trapp is going to stay. He's said that he did get an offer from Manchester United, but he's decided to stay with Frankfurt, so that's a boost. Sporting have lost key players. Nunez has just gone to Wolves. Paulinho went to Fulham, so that's a midfield 2 there that's really important to them. And Marseille were in the Conference League semi-finals last season, so you're playing teams that don't have much of a recent pedigree in this competition. Sporting, to be fair to them, got through to the last 16, and then City absolutely wiped the floor with them. So I do think Spurs will fancy this.
So if you're saying Spurs, I'm guessing from the sounds of it are the favourites. Who out of the other teams then will join them?
I think it's wide open with the rest. I think probably Frankfurt will just about go through with them, but I'd say it's a toss-up between them and Sporting. But I think Spurs should win that group, personally.
Who do you think will go through, Benny?
I think Spurs, and I guess Frankfurt, as you said, they're the ones with a little bit more pedigree, certainly in recent times. So I'd say Frankfurt and Tottenham.
Okay. Let's move on to the next group involving a British team. That's Group E, AC Milan, Chelsea, Salzburg and Dinamo Zagreb.
Tamori Derby.
Yeah, that's the one we're really looking forward to. Look, I think that group started badly for Chelsea, but I think the way it's shaken down, as long as they don't lose concentration against Salzburg over those 2 games, it should be Milan and Chelsea that go through.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Chelsea will sort out their problems. I don't agree with the buying policy at the moment. I think it's all over the place. I think they brought in Koulibaly's a great signing, Sterling's a great signing, fine. When you're starting to think about 60 million for Anthony Gordon, I start to question what's going on. And that's not to say he's a bad player. I don't think he is. But I think that's a hell of a lot of money to pay for a player of his track record.
Before this Champions League starts, do you think we'll see the likes of Aubameyang, maybe De Jong at Stamford Bridge?
I think Aubameyang is more likely because Barca need to sell, and that's going to be about getting the numbers right. But Aubameyang and Tuchel worked together very, very well with Dortmund. There was a season specifically when Dembele was playing really well as well. They played some brilliant football. And I think Aubameyang was top scorer that season. He got penalty with the final minute of the final game, and I was on that one. It was a crazy game, and they played brilliant football. So there's a click there. I think ideally he would have wanted to stay in Barcelona, but there's a certain Mr. Lewandowski there blocking his way.
Just quickly, I've only got you for maybe a maximum of 2 minutes. I just want to get your view on the other 2 groups involved with British sides. Real Madrid in Group F, Real Madrid, Leipzig, Shakhtar and Celtic, right? So if you can talk a bit about that. And also, out of Celtic and Rangers fans, who would think they've got the easier group?
Well, that's a really tough one, because Celtic, I think, will look at it and think, can we finish above Leipzig and Shakhtar? But the games against Real Madrid are so hard. Real do lose concentration sometimes in the group stage. They lost to Sheriff last season.
I remember that.
With that really late long-range goal and went on to win the tournament.
Yeah.
So maybe you could catch Real Madrid.
That sentence doesn't even sound right, does it? They
crazy.
lost to Sheriff.
Lost to Sheriff. And a brilliant goal as well.
It was.
Actually.
I remember it.
With a guy who had a tattoo of the Champions League trophy on his leg. I do think that's tough, though. It depends on Leipzig, to be honest, because they've had a really tricky start, but they've got Christopher Nkunku, Timo Werner, so much quality all the way through the squad. I think when Joško Gvardiol is fully fit, that will really help them. So I think it's tough for Celtic to get out of that group.
Okay, and finally, Group G, Man City, Sevilla, Dortmund and Copenhagen.
I mean, the headline is Haaland going back to Dortmund. I think that's great fun. But I think City will look at that and think all of those teams are beatable. I think Dortmund is still fragile despite the signings that they've made. Sevilla are on the decline at the moment under Julen Lopetegui. And I think Copenhagen won't be able to live with them over the 2 games. So I would expect City to win that group.
Okay. Kev, we love you.
Thank you very much.
But I'll be honest, we love our listeners a little bit more.
That's
so
understandable.
we're gonna let them come on national radio and have their say. But for the time being, always a pleasure. When are you next back on talkSPORT? When can we hear you again? Do you know?
Maybe later this week or early next week. Who knows? It's an unpredictable life.
I know what you're doing there.
Might be never.
I don't think it'll be never. My guess is you'll probably be on the next show. But listen, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming into the studio.